Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of She's Doing All Right. My name is Sarah, and this is a podcast where we're just discussing motherhood, mental health, and whatever else I feel like talking about. It's also very heavy on the messy action because right now, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see I'm a sweaty mess. My house is a disaster behind me, and we actually just got back from a little walk with the kids, and both of them fell asleep, which is great. So I'm going to quickly film this and record this podcast so that hopefully I can stick to this pattern of every other week. My uploads, I would love for them to be weekly, but it's just not fitting in right now. So that's okay. If we can hit it bi-monthly, I'm happy with that. But anyway, today I wanted to discuss something that I've learned in therapy, or that I've been thinking about from therapy. And it's basically who's responding to your kid. We have been discussing a lot about why I'm triggered when my kids are making a lot of noise, amongst other reasons. But yeah, the big one is when they both need something from me at once. And as with most things, we've discussed our childhood, we have discussed parentification as I was the oldest, and yeah, we kind of have just realized that most of my things with my own kids are the spaces that I was not met as a kid, like unmet emotional needs as a kid for myself. So now I'm looking to my kids to fulfill that. So one of the things we discussed, like a specific scenario, was when I was growing up, there were 6 of us at my mom's, and if we were at the playground or something, it was a lot of pressure to just keep an eye on each other because somebody could get kidnapped. And we were very much in, like, I don't know if my mom meant to do this, and I know she might be listening, but she would give us a lot of fear tactic, if that makes sense. Like, she would tell us like horrible stories about kids being taken. And I get that because I read a lot of those stories as a mom, and I actually have to catch myself to not put that on my kids, to not tell my son, especially the oldest, like, don't run away or someone's going to take you. Like, I want him to understand the dangers so he's prepared and aware, but I also don't want that to be like the go-to, because it made me so scared and so paranoid. And I realize now as a mom, I'm constantly looking around, and I don't think that's a bad thing. We actually discussed that. My therapist was like, let's talk about the benefits of being on high alert and thinking worst case scenario. And I was like, oh, right, there are some benefits. And we discussed all of the thing about making sure we're alert, making sure we're prepared for different situations, being present. Like, there's a lot of benefits that come from that mindset, but it's also part of the paranoia and anxiety, right? And I'm kind of, side note, thinking that I have more postpartum anxiety this time around than postpartum depression. And I know the two of them can be linked, but just looking at how I felt with my son versus how I'm feeling with my daughter, I feel like when something spikes, it's more of an anxious thing. And the sadness and stuff might show up, but not nearly to the extent that it was with my son. So yeah, the anxiety of just constantly being on alert is always there. And so I'm talking with my therapist about this, and she goes, you know, now though, like, you've got this. 31-year-old Sarah's got it. So the next time your kids are at the park not listening to you, or you're stressed out for whatever reason, you don't have to, like, it sounds like you're parenting from your childhood version of you. So 14-year-old Sarah or 16-year-old Sarah is trying to step in frantically, being like, okay, I can control this, I can do this. You need to listen to me. You need to listen to me. Otherwise, everybody's gonna get in trouble. I'm gonna get in the most trouble. And she's like, just relax. You can, as adult Sarah, you get to say, hey, little Sarah, I got it. You can go rest. And she was like, how often did you get told that as a kid? I'm like, not often. So it's been a really interesting week since that therapy appointment, because that's always in my mind. I'm thinking about that now. Who's parenting my kids? Who's responding to their outbursts? Who's actually being triggered by their outbursts? Or if both kids are making a lot of noise, I didn't realize this, but growing up, we always had to like try to stay quiet if my mom had a migraine, and she had 6 kids, so I don't blame her at all for having migraines and needing the quiet. I have 2 and I would like some quiet. So I feel that pressure when both kids need me at the same time. I feel like I need to keep everyone calm so that I don't know, someone can rest, I guess. It was kind of one of those subconscious things that I didn't realize I was doing, but it definitely stressed me out when they're both making noise. And that's another one of being like, hey, Sarah, little Sarah, we got this. No, everybody's happy. Everyone's good. Both kids can make noise right now. It's okay. And another one, I think one of the last ones that we were kind of discussing was when my daughter needs me. She really doesn't need a whole lot. She doesn't cry for much. She doesn't fuss a lot. But when she does, I feel it's like 0 to 60 with my anxiety. And we realized that that is because I feel like she needs so little. So when she needs something or anything at all, I want to fulfill that need. And that was another one, I think, kind of tied to childhood, of just like immediate response. We had to have immediate responses growing up. And none of this stuff is like fully negative. It was just the way I was brought up kind of was more intense. It was a little more strict, right? So it's heavily influencing how I parent, but not exactly in a conscious level. It's that subconscious layer that's influencing how I parent. And it's coming through in emotional responses to my kid when I'm supposed to be the one who's got my emotions regulated. It's coming through in anger outbursts of being like, I'm not being seen, I'm not being heard, when again, I'm supposed to be the emotionally regulated one. And it comes out in me just being so overwhelmed, because as an adult, I actually am equipped to handle this. I know I am, because I see it on some days where I handle it so beautifully. And when I think back on the moment, I'm like, if I was watching a mom do this in the parking lot or wherever, I would be like, wow, I want to parent like that mom. But anyway, I've been having a few moments where I do have an emotional response to my son, especially, or sometimes it's both. And I've just been able to step away, leave, yes, both kids might be crying, but everybody's safe. And I can take a step back, breathe, and I can go, okay, who's actually taking control here? Who's leading the ship? Because if it's 16 or 14-year-old Sarah, she's overwhelmed. All she's really ever known is overwhelmed, because the kids don't listen to her because she's not the mom. But actually 31-year-old Sarah, you are the mom. And these kids love you and want to listen to you. They want to do what you're asking. They just need better discipline, better leadership. Like they have to see somebody doing what they need. And it changes my perspective so much. So instead of going out and yelling at them because they don't want to learn how to yell, I can go out and get on their level, try to connect in a different way. Even just telling them like, hey, it's okay. You can be upset. Mommy will be happy for you right now. And like watching my son's attitude change when I said that one time was like crazy. Like he just sat and cuddled for a minute. I'm like, if you need to cry, you can. I'll hold you. And he's like, okay. And then he was suddenly happy and we wanted to go play. So sharing this in the hopes that if you are having any issues with parenting or getting easily triggered with your kids, if you are suffering with any form of anxiety or depression, and a lot of it is triggered by your children, think about who's actually responding to your kids today. Is it younger version of you who was not emotionally equipped for this? Or is the present day you who actually is? You've done the work, you're listening to shows, you're probably in therapy, you're reading books, you're looking through Pinterest for ideas. You actually have way more tools than you think. And when you're able to step into the present version of you and use the tools that you have collected, then the younger version of you gets to rest for maybe the first time in their life. They get to have that responsibility lifted off of their shoulders, and you get to take charge. So by raising your own kids, you're actually healing your inner child as well. That's how I see it anyway. And actually, I don't think you need to have kids to benefit from this. Anytime we have an emotional response, you can think about like, who's actually responding to this? Is it present day me or is it a younger version of me? And I'm not saying that like the present day version of us has everything under control. No, we're still going to have emotional responses. We're still experiencing new things and experiencing like brand new interactions every day for the most part. So chances are we're going to have outbursts and learning experiences, right? Beyond that, I don't really have a lot more to say on this topic. It's just been something that's been in my head for the last week. It's been really, like the idea of who's actually responding to my kids has been really in my brain consistently, and I'm very grateful for it because it's making me a more present mom, for sure. I'm trying to be really good at stepping into my present self, even when I am triggered. And sometimes it does take a little bit longer for me to recognize what's happening, but then I can step into it, like step out of it rather. And I know that with practice, it's going to be such an, like, instead of the instant response being frustration, the instant response is going to be get down on their level and help my kids. And I see it starting to get a little easier and more quick. So I hope you found this a little bit beneficial. I hope it gave you something to think about. And if you have any thoughts on it whatsoever, I would love to hear from you. You can find me at sarah.g.carter on TikTok and Instagram. The podcast has an Instagram called Sarah, She's Doing All Right. And then you can also email me at sarahmgcarter@gmail.com. That's it for today's show. It's short and sweet. And I hope I see you here in the next one. Thanks for listening. Bye.